One of the youngest NBA Finals teams ever shows their youth. Yes, we will in fact have a Game 7. And OKC's GM has come up short so many times over the years. Will he again in Game 7 be on the wrong end of some bad luck? And on this day in NBA history, the Houston Rockets drafted Hakeem Olajuwon over Michael Jordan. Was it definitely the wrong pick? We shall see. We'll discuss that and much more straight ahead. I'm Doug Kezirian, and this is Hard Pass. The hoop scoop is that we will in fact have a Game 7 in the NBA Finals Sunday night. The Indiana Pacers stave off elimination, taking control of Game 6 in the second quarter, outscoring the Thunder 36-17. So that's 19 points, lead by 22 at the break, extended it to 30+, and then that was all she wrote. So the OKC Thunder, among the youngest teams ever to reach the NBA Finals, and if they are crowned champions, will be the second youngest team ever, showed their youth and did not come ready to play. Give the Pacers credit as well. Indiana only had, I think, 2 turnovers in the first half. It was a 12-2 margin, something like that. Finished 21-10 in the turnover margin. Also held OKC starters to 1 of 13 shooting from downtown. As a team, OKC just 8 of 30 for 27%. And the big storyline of this one, the unknown, the game-time decision of Tyrese Haliburton, 23 minutes, 14 points, including 3 of 7 from downtown. Also had 5 assists. He only had to play 23 minutes because it was a decided game in the second half. That's big as he was nursing that calf injury. So that's certainly an encouraging sign for Indiana for Game 7. And I mentioned the Thunder, so young. The youngest champion ever is the 1977 Trailblazers with Bill Walton, Big Red. This Thunder team, average age 25.6 years old. That is why they are only 5-5 on the road this entire postseason, despite being favored in all 10 games, and 1-9 against the spread on the road. And that lone cover against the point spread was a fluky, gross cover that was just the last few seconds or last couple, 30 seconds of Game 4. So really, this team's been underperforming on the road, but now they get Game 7 on their home court. And I want to know from you who you think is going to win Game 7. That's our YouTube question. Go chime in the comments section. Join the conversation. I know they're big favorites, but you pick the winner. Who will win Game 7? Let us know your thoughts. Time now for a heat check, and that's when we canvass social media, see what's trending, see what's resonating out there and moving the needle. And it's obviously the Pacers win in Game 6 and the fact that we will have a Game 7. The Athletic publication, New York Times, the NBA account says assists in the first half of Game 6. Tyrese Haliburton on one leg for the entire Oklahoma City Thunder team, 3. Robert Griffin III, RJ3, the former Heisman Trophy winner and former ESPN analyst, now has a presence on social media, says the Pacers and Thunder have given us the best NBA Finals since 2016 with the Warriors and Cavs. I agree, and that's the last time we had a Game 7 in the Finals nearly a decade ago, and more on that series coming up later in distant replay, as Thursday was the anniversary of that Game 7. And one of my favorite Twitter accounts, usually it's funny, channeling some Hubie Brown isms, just says 2 words, folks, Game 7, and with a picture of the legendary coach and legendary ESPN broadcaster. Betting 101 is exactly what it sounds like. We will teach you some things along the lines of sports betting, and we've been discussing the NBA Finals throughout this series, and with a loss in Game 6 on our prop bet, we fall to 3-2. And that's something that happens if you're new to betting. That's something that happens in blowouts. Things really can go awry, and the outlier occurrences happen. And so we had Chet Holmgren over 8.5 rebounds, but he only played 24 minutes because the game was decided by the end of the third quarter. And both coaches really saving some of their key guys in terms of energy until for Sunday's Game 7. So he only played 24 minutes, got 6 rebounds. It happens, like I said, an outlier performance, and we just turned the page to the next day. Now, point spread for Game 7, Oklahoma City's a 8.5 point favorite. They were 9.5 to 10 in Games 1 and 2 and also Game 5. So a little bit of a tax on the Pacers because they think it's going to be a tighter series. Now, something to keep in mind, the over-under for Game 7 is 215. Prior to Game 7, the lowest in the series was 222. So Game 7s typically are low scoring. They usually go under, and so the betting market's going to adjust, and it's certainly adjusted to 215, nowhere near as low as any of the games totals were in 1 through 6. We saw as high as like 231 at one point. So 215 is a really big adjustment, but I don't think it's enough. That's going to be my official Game 7 play. I'm going to take under 215. Some of the narratives that I think apply, shooters are tight. They know the magnitude. A championship's on the line. Also, offensive possessions are much more measured. As much as they want to get out and run, there will definitely be some tightness and methodical sets on offense. Also, the referees want to swallow the whistle. They don't want to decide the outcome. So things are going to be more physical, and defense, I think, will just play better as well. So all hands on deck. Both defenses familiar with the other team's offense, having faced it for now 7 straight games. And I just think the adjustment in the market is not enough. For our final play in these NBA Finals, I'll go under, get a 215 in Game 7. Hardwood Confidential is a time where we go behind the scenes, pull back the curtain a little bit away from the field of play or the court of play. And I can't help but think about Sam Presti, OKC's general manager, who took over in 2007 and built not one, but 2 contenders. Now, he came over from San Antonio, where he was a part of 3 titles with the Spurs. He started as an intern, became a video coordinator. He convinced R.C. Buford, the general manager of the Spurs, to hire him as an intern back in the day. He became an assistant general manager, eventually working his way up. He was instrumental in drafting Tony Parker and just building that dynasty. So Seattle hires him away, and Presti, ever the wizard, drafts all these studs and potential all-stars or future all-stars. Started with Jeff Green, then Serge Ibaka. Kevin Durant fell in his lap at number 2. Westbrook was a little bit of a curveball. James Harden, 3rd overall, was also a curveball. He built this core. He did have to trade Harden eventually, but remember, he got to the finals when they were young, and it looked like a championship was imminent. Yes, they lost to LeBron and the Heat in 2012, but a title definitely seemed around the corner. But he traded Harden. Some injuries went against him, whether it was the Westbrook injury and whatnot. 2016 playoffs. OKC's 4th Western Conference Finals in a 6-year span. They lead Golden State 3-1. But then they blow it. The key is Klay Thompson has the game 6 in OKC, and then the Warriors win in 7. So they blow that lead to the 73-9 Warriors. Then here's the big one. The worst luck you can catch as a general manager. A couple years prior, the league signed a huge television deal, $24 billion. Dealing with the collective bargaining agreement and the players' union, there was talk of taking that money and smoothing it over a few years while raising the salary cap. That was rejected unanimously by the players. So instead, they had a 1-year giant spike of the salary cap, and it was for $24.1 million. And it randomly was the offseason of 2016. Again, that was decided a couple years earlier. It just so happens that happened to be the free agency of Kevin Durant. So talk about bad luck. Thunder, with the other good teams in the NBA, were at the max of their salary. And other teams were too, but everyone was basically allowed to sign a max player. So these other good teams didn't have to trade away pieces or create salary cap space to add a guy like Kevin Durant. So horrible timing that happened to be the summer of 2016 when Durant's contract was expiring at OKC. The leverage that OKC usually has in this situation, they didn't have. So a team like the 73-9 Warriors, who lost the title that year, could just add a guy like Durant. That's like the Jordan Bulls adding Olajuwon. You add a former league MVP in a position of need as he searches for his first NBA title. That's what Durant was, joining a franchise that had recently won a title. So that would be Olajuwon joining the Bulls in the mid-90s. That's why so many people think that Warriors team with Durant is the best ever. I've talked to odds makers here in Las Vegas. They say they'd be favored by like 15 or 20 over every great team ever because it was just an unfair occurrence in league history that allowed a max player to go to a team that was already at its capacity of a salary cap. Everyone just got the TV spike of $24 million. And that's why. So since then, that bad luck in OKC, Presti built another contender. He traded for Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. That didn't work. Then he traded Paul George to the Clippers for SGA. Westbrook for Chris Paul, made the playoffs. This was the original process, tanked a little bit, built around SGA, but this time it worked. The right picks, 2022, takes Holmgren at number 2 instead of Jabari. Jalen Williams at 12. How good of a pick was that out of Santa Clara? So Presti, making all these wonderful picks, overcomes all this bad luck, rebuilds a contender, and now here's Sam Presti, still one win away after OKC loses Game 6. Now they get him at home, and Presti can complete the dream with a Game 7 victory at home. He's been pushing that boulder up the hill forever, but will bad luck or misfortune doom him again, and he'll go back to the drawing board? We shall see Sunday night. He's got a young team that he's put together. They're the favorites. They're capable. And Sam Presti's one win away from the title. Distant replay is such a fun segment because we get to revisit some historic occurrences in sports history. June 19th, the date of this year's NBA Finals Game 6. Also significant, really 2 times in NBA history. The most recent, 2016, LeBron and the Cavs win Game 7 at Oracle to complete the rally from a 3-1 deficit, the first ever in NBA Finals history. And they were down 7 at half, but a monster fourth quarter highlighted by the block. LeBron's chase down rejection of Andre Iguodala. Remember, AI or Iggy had missed 2 free throws earlier in the fourth quarter, so maybe was trying to avoid the foul. Either way, LeBron does a wonderful job avoiding hanging on the rim. Good job by the officials to not call goaltending. And then after that, the shot delivered by Kyrie to the go-ahead step-back 3 over Steph, and a city that was aching for so many years without a championship, marred by the fumble and the drive, now got the block and the shot by LeBron and Kyrie. And LeBron delivers what he set out to do. And he finally gets Kyrie and Kevin Love healthy in those finals, as opposed to earlier when he faced the Warriors, and delivers that championship. Such a significant moment in NBA history. Same date, 1984, one of the more famous drafts involving LeBron's idol and so many NBA players from that era's idol, Michael Jordan. He went number 3 overall. Olajuwon, number 1 to the Houston Rockets. Why did they pass on MJ? Well, no one really knew Jordan would become Jordan. But Houston needed a center because they already had Clyde Drexler at shooting guard. And obviously, Olajuwon had played in nearby University of Houston, so they were well aware of his prowess. And in that era, and for so many decades, big men were always prioritized, the deference. And yes, Houston got 2 titles, and then you could say they should have drafted Jordan. We don't know if the Rockets would have had 6 titles with Jordan. Yes, he would have delivered championships. We just don't know how many because so much went right in Chicago. Scottie Pippen, obviously a perfect running mate. He was so key to all that success. Also, the 4 spot, whether it be Horace Grant or later Rodman. Phil Jackson was excellent at managing egos, developing the psyche of Jordan all those years. The right role players, whether it be Jim Paxson, Steve Kerr. The margin of error is so small. Things went right for Chicago, yes. And then Jordan retired, unretired, things like that. You just don't know how it would have played out in Houston, especially when they already had Drexler. Who knows what happens, right? 2 titles is a pretty big victory for the Houston Rockets. Don't forget, the Blazers had the number 2 overall pick. They drafted big man out of Kentucky, Sam Bowie, despite Bobby Knight calling Portland and saying, draft Jordan. They said, we need a center. Bobby Knight says, play Jordan at center. That did not happen. And then the Bulls got Jordan, who fell to them at 3, but even they didn't really understand what they had on their hands. Even then, general manager Rod Thorne at the time said, We wish he were 7 feet, but he isn't. There just wasn't a center available, but what can you do? Later, Thorne said he's a very good offensive player, but not an overpowering offensive player. Jordan isn't going to turn this franchise around. I would say he became an overpowering offensive player and did, in fact, turn the franchise around. You just don't know at that age. Yes, Jordan was great at college, had the game winner against Georgetown to win the title for UNC, but no one could have predicted this. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and Jordan fell in their lap with the 3rd overall pick. Now, this also got me thinking about when I hosted SportsCenter in 2014. It was when NBA Commissioner David Stern was set to retire. He was featured in a SportsCenter conversation. I was handling the intro to that conversation with Mike Tirico. Now, my co-host was Max Bretos, one of the funniest human beings ever to walk the face of the planet. Great guy, good friend to this day. He was off camera and appreciated my humor while setting up that SportsCenter conversation with David Stern.
1984 NBA Draft. David Stern ushers in a new era, posing with number 1 overall pick Hakeem Olajuwon, who coincidentally is dressed like an usher. Hakeem the Dream began a dream run for the league. Total revenue in 1984. It's like $165 million. This season, $5.5 billion. Now the mustache is gone, but the stash of cash has grown considerably. Tomorrow, Stern will end 30 years as NBA commissioner.
After that long conversation, several minutes later, we're talking college basketball, and I'm still giggling because Max and I, during that taped interview, are dying laughing. It's just, you get the giggles, it happens, and sometimes you just can't shake it off. Thank God it wasn't a serious story, and it is what it is, the beauty of live television.
Not so much for the basketball squad, who look very comfortable in their new surroundings. Yeah, the new kids in town making it look easy. 7-0. We're still cracking up with getting Olajuwon out. 7-0 to open conference play, but an ACC figurehead with a chance tomorrow night to restore some order. Duke.
Fans in the Stands is about you, our audience, kind of like the mailbag portion of the show. And this is where we take your comments and we respond to them. I do, of course, but we want to encourage you to join the conversation. This is where you tell us what you like, what you dislike, what you want to see more of, less of, or just general sports questions. I will answer them here during this segment. And I certainly got some feedback from the last 2 shows regarding Angel Reese. And on TikTok, we had some comments. Serena says, I love your take. And she said she is motivated, but the consistent attacks too much. I agree. Stop telling me what she doesn't do. She's still an all-star. She does plenty right. Let's soften it. That was my sort of gist of what I was saying. But Slingblade888 says, Reese has below average footwork, ball handling skills, court awareness, and shooting mechanics. She has benefited in college by being surrounded by above-average teammates. Her game is exposed now that she has no one to lean on. Respectfully, I disagree. She hasn't been exposed. As a rookie, she led the WNBA in rebounding. She was an all-star. She broke some WNBA records. This year, she's leading the league in rebounding. Now, does she have limited offense? Of course, but I don't think her footwork's limited. I definitely don't think she has below-average ball handling skills. In fact, for a big, at the 4 spot, she's excellent ball handler. That's why I think she has some Mason Plumlee in her game. Court awareness, she's a good passer. And shooting mechanics, yeah, but her free throws are fine. Her percentages are good. Like, she's going to continue to be good in the WNBA. She's not elite, but she's good. Let's keep it going here. We have MMAD exclamation mark. Once Angel gets a star on her team, she'll be good. She's great at what she does, but she doesn't need to be the first option. If she can get a Kelsey Mitchell, Enrique type of guard, she'd look so much better. I completely agree. I don't think the Sky have earmarked her for a number 1 scoring option. She certainly shouldn't be. Ariel Atkins has been a nice sort of option for the Sky. So is Camilo Cardoso. When she's on the court and in the box or on the block, she's great. And maybe they can just put some more scoring around her. It's definitely a limited roster, without question. And Angel Reese should not be the first scoring option. But I don't think the front office thinks that the offense can run through her because she's a great passer and obviously offensive rebounder on offense. But yes, she definitely needs to be surrounded by more talent. All right, so that's going to do it for this edition of Hard Pass. We always appreciate you tuning in. And again, encourage you to join the conversation and let us know your thoughts. And our next show is Sunday night / Monday morning after Game 7 of the NBA Finals, we will crown a champ. Will it be the Oklahoma City Thunder, among the favorites, if not the favorite, the entire season, or will the Indiana Pacers complete an improbable title run where they were in the neighborhood of 50 or 100 to 1 in terms of long shot odds to begin the season? We shall see with one more game to go.